Hello and welcome to episode 3 of J Loco's Trackbed Time Stories. Now, before we go any further, if you are looking at a black screen, that is perfectly normal. This is an audio podcast only, just to be clear. So there are no images, nothing to watch. So I think a few of you are still kind of like, there's no kind of imagery, there's no video. Is it supposed to be? It is perfectly normal. Perfectly normal for this podcast anyway. As I mentioned last week and in the pilot episode, it is very much designed to be something that you kind of sit back, listen to. You can shut your eyes. You don't really have to concentrate. And you can also be doing something else and just let it play away. So if it's not to your taste because there's no vision, totally understand. And hopefully I'll be able to make a YouTube video soon for you to watch of the railways. So totally understand if, like I said, if you prefer more visual entertainment. But I wanted to make this very different from my YouTube videos. I wanted it to kind of stand alone. It is a trial, And I have noticed, if I'm absolutely honest, there's less listeners this week to the pilot episode. So we have still hit when I said last week, if we get 3, we won't come back. If we get 300, we will. We have cleared that. But in my opinion, it's down quite a few hundred on the pilot. So could this be the last episode? We'll see when I set perhaps the figures in the last orders later on. It could be, as I say, everything's experimental. It was just a crazy idea I had one night over a beer, dare I say. And it could be that podcasts, I should keep it to perhaps YouTube videos. We'll see. I'm always open to experiment, always open to see what works, what doesn't. And so that's where we are. So that's this week's little intro. So let me now just see what we've got. Well, the drums announce it's story time. So what have I been up to? Again, I think my Insta guys will know, and also there was a very small live video Saturday night from where I was on YouTube, and that was the Keighley and Worth Valley Beer and Music Festival. Of course, that's in Yorkshire. Now it's an annual event, for those who aren't aware, that the railway holds, where literally the line transforms itself into, exactly as it says, a beer and music festival. So you have 2 trains running the whole time. You have the Ossett Express and you also have the Flying Landlord, and they're from 2 of the beer sponsors. So obviously the beer they make are behind the bars on them. And in between that, you have sort of a Keighley station itself. There's like pop-up kind of food venues. Obviously, there's the parcels office, which is always there doing food and drink. The other main site is Ingro, where those familiar with the Bahamas Trust and also the Vintage Carriage Trust are at Ingro every time you go. That is their home. But there, Ingro transforms into, they have like a massive tent kind of erected. And there's lots of bars in that, like little pop-up bars. There's a stage where there's continual music from about 2 to 11. And outside there's lots of food stalls. One of my particular favourites, which was selling some rather nice pies. And of course, you've got the main kind of festival site, which is up at Oxenhope. And that's where the normal exhibition shed, which holds sort of the locos that don't run anymore, they're all kind of pushed to the sides. There's a bar with what must look like about 50 pumps on it, and a big main stage down the bottom, kind of nestled in. And outside, again, you've got pop-up food stalls and things like that. So it's just a very good vibe. You do get a lot of, perhaps not so much railway fans, dare I say. You do get some, but not as many. You do get a lot of different kind of customer there, I think, that literally it's the only time they go to a railway is for that festival once a year, sort of thing. So when you get talking to, I was talking to a group of farmers from Shropshire, and they only literally go once a year. They're not really into trains, they just go for the beer and the music. so that just gives you an example. It was nice to see there was some familiarity from the North Yorkshire Moors there as well on the Saturday. It's always nice and comfortable to see when you see some Moors guys. So it was just I think the Saturday was very, very busy. The Friday was just nicely busy, in my opinion, but the Saturday, it was a sellout, as it often is, and it was very busy. Kind of a lot of the trains standing room only if you were not on them straight away. But it was just a nice vibe either way. And music-wise, I'd say two favourite bands. The Saturday afternoon at Oxenhope, there was a young kind of indie band called Into the Mystic, and it was two girls, two guys, and they could play guitar, and the drums. Their instruments were on point, and the room just kind of erupted when they did. I think it was Fleetwood Mac Chain, the F1 song, as most people know it as, and I've never seen such a reaction. It kind of lifted from there. So the other band I really enjoyed and liked was the Saturday night. Moved down to Ingro, and it was a band named Night Patrol. One of the guys who works on the railway and does a lot of volunteering sort of elsewhere, such as the Moors, Noel Hartley, he's a drummer, and it would be a singer in the band. So they were brilliant. They totally had the crowd every song they did, anthem after anthem, and such an entertainer, their front man as well, in my opinion. So that was, for me, that was how I ended the festival, because I didn't do the Sunday, I travelled home. So for me, that was the way to sort of end the weekend. It was fabulous. And of course, they organised Last Train of the Night in both directions to be nicely timed for after the band is finished. So that was my weekend. So, shall we now have, let me have a look, a fun fact of the week. So what do I have in store for you this week? Well, we're actually going continental today, and it's a famous ghost train of the New York and New England Railroad. I don't know if you've ever heard of it. But what it was on March the 16th in 1891, the opulent White Train, which was a luxury passenger train of the New York and New England Railroad. Now, you guys, again on Insta and YouTube, will know I like my luxury trains. So this appealed to my nature when I read about this. I thought, I'll share this one with you this week. Well, it pulled out of a station in Boston on its first run, set to arrive in Grand Central Station in New York City in 6 hours. The Boston Herald reported that people lined the route through the city and suburbs and gazed with mingled curiosity and delight at its handsome appearance. That's quite a train. And it goes on to say that the train was pure Gild Age splendour. Its parlour cars fitted with velvet carpets, silk draperies, white silk curtains, chairs upholstered in gold plush, full-length glass mirrors installed each end of the car. The coaches were heated with steam piped directly from the locomotive, an improvement over the previous fat-bellied stoves used in ordinary coaches. Gas lights brightly illuminated the coaches, replacing all oil-burning lights, normally in use. The dining car's menu, again, you all know I like a dining car. Well, the dining car's menu included baked striped bass with Italian sauce, roasted spring lamb, ribs of beef, sauté of chicken with mushrooms, and a wide array of vegetables, salads, desserts, with every fine wine and liquor available. There was no question that the luxury train was meant to serve the exquisite tastes of the barons and financial kings of the time. Now, the white train's name was literal. All of the cars were painted white, and this is where it got its nickname. Because on its first run, the crew, which included the famous locomotive engineer Jean Potter, wore white coats or overalls, white caps and white gloves. I mean, imagine that on a steam train. Well, as time passed, when the white cars travelled through the countryside, particularly at dusk or in the evening, observers came to refer to it as an eerie apparition. Thus, the white train was soon better known as the ghost train. So there you go. That intrigued me, that story. I do like reading kind of things like that. And for those of you that might be listening from across the pond there, it's probably something you're very familiar with and you've heard the story before. But as I say, I like my luxury trains. I love dining on trains, and I just think what a train that must have been. And also, I kind of like, especially with Halloween coming up, I thought I found myself wondering. I mean, we all know when you go to fairs or theme parks, there's always been a ghost train. And it makes you wonder, is that the origins of the name? Did that inspire what we now see perhaps at theme parks or fair rides? I don't know. I like to think so. I always think there's a history behind everything and every kind of nickname. So it's a strong possibility. So there we go. That is the fact of the famous ghost train of the New York and New England Railroad. And the arrival of the seagulls heralds it's time for Aye Aye Captain, which is, of course, what's caught J Loco's eye this week. Well, the main thing that's caught my eye, which I'm sure some of you have already seen out there in the press, is the Duke of Gloucester's return to the main line. Now, they are advertising that the Duke of Gloucester is going to do its first public run on the 6th of November over Shap. Now, this, obviously, it's done a test run for the members on a kind of a crew kind of test circuit with LSL Pathways, and it also did a chairman's trip for the chairman and his selected friends, where they did go to Carlisle and then return the following day, which I do believe they did have a few small issues on that. So hopefully this one will go more to plan. So this, but when they say it's the first public run, that means paying passengers. So the likes of people who've booked, Safos, Steam Dreams. So the trip starts from London Euston. However, it is diesel hauled from there. So it will actually be from Crewe, where the Duke will take over to Carlisle and then return. So obviously, as we all know, LSL Group are based at Crewe. So let me just see. So yes, so I sidetracked then for a moment. So yes, they are based at Crewe. So that's probably why then they attach from there. So as people know as well, I was a supporter of the Duke of Gloucester. Did used to sort of give monthly donations to help get them back online. So it is good to see now that they are finally up and running. They have a very successful contract with LSL. So I do believe it will be based mainly out of Southall going forward. This one, obviously, it's its first inaugural type run, but going into 2026, it will be Southall based from what I've heard. So I I did take the difficult decision to no longer be a member of the Duke of Gloucester Trust. Again, I'm going to tie this in with Ask Yourself This, which I haven't done yet, so I'm tying it in with this. Ask yourself this: how do you guys feel about financially supporting individual kind of locomotives, individual groups? I don't know. I've heard very mixed things from people and opinions, and I just wondered that's the thought for you to ask yourselves this week. What's your opinions? How do you feel on that? I am still a member of the Sir Nigel Gresley Trust. Sir Nigel Gresley is a very special engine to me, so I'm more than happy to always support Gresley. With the Duke, I always think I at first, I was very heavily kind of connected, or I felt like I was, but I kind of always envisioned, dare I say, that it would become a Tyseley-based engine, because there was a lot of talk at the time when I joined the trust that it was going to be based at Tyseley. They would get the contract. They did a lot of the work there, obviously, and I envisaged it would be on perhaps the vintage trains trips mainly. So I was surprised, as much as a few of us were, when they did the LSL deal. And I do like LSL, I do a lot of trips with them. But I just felt, it was a decision the trust made that they felt they needed to move in that direction. And obviously it was no doubt more financially viable. So once I saw the Duke was back sort of running and got these runs and contracts in place, I did find myself thinking, well, is it time now to support a different loco, a different kind of trust, and get them into that same position, so we can get more kind of locos back on the line? There's some people I've spoken to about this, and, potentially have the unpopular opinion of, there's too many steam locos already. There's too many, and, we should support the ones that are out there, and yada yada, and then there's also the perhaps more popular opinion where people say no, we should all be supporting them all, we should get as many back as possible. I guess none of us can predict the future, otherwise we'd all be very clever people, wouldn't we? So I don't know what the future of steam on the main line is. I hope it continues for a long time. That's perhaps a never ask yourself question. What's your thoughts? I don't know. So I do feel personally, it looks as if the rail network are tightening down a bit more on the pathways they offer. So I don't know. I hope it's a long time away yet, because I think there's nothing better than either being behind a steam loco on the main line or actually seeing one, wherever you are, if you actually are lucky enough to see one. So yes, I've tied two themes into one there. And the other thing that's caught my eye is still on LSL. And I do notice their 2026 tours went on sale. So I was eager to have a look, because I am making my bookings now for next year, trying to work out where I'm going to be, what I want to do. And I loved that Midland Pullman weekend so much that I did to Inverness. I was very keen to perhaps do another, just in case anything changes and they stop doing them or they change what they do. Because when I was on the one, there was a lot of people saying to me, oh, you really need to do the Fort William one. You really, this one's good, but you would love the Fort William one. So I have been to Fort William quite a few times in the past, by myself, road trips or chasing Jacobite. I've travelled on the Jacobite as well a few years ago now, quite a few years ago now. So I was keen to do the line again, but not via West Coast, to do it. Originally I was thinking maybe I'd go back and I'd do it via the ScotRail train and just see, just for the scenery really. But then once I'd spoken to these people and then I saw there was a trip next year that I could make date-wise, I am going to do it again. I'm going to go to Fort William, and the Midland Pullman does the trip up to Mallaig. So I'm so looking forward to that already, but I don't want to wish the next 12 months away. So watch out for that. Insta, YouTube guys, if you're listening, watch out for that coming up next year. So I think that I better move on from what's caught my eye and have a bit of, well, should we have some motivation? So what does Mr. Worldwide, aka everybody's favourite Pitbull, have in store for us this week? Well, this is one that tied in with something I kind of binge watched at the start of the week and something I touched on Instagram stories Monday morning. So this is a comment from Mr. Worldwide, and it is, haters are a sign that you are doing something right. That is, haters are a sign you are doing something right. So basically, I think it's the world we live in, you know. I think the press have kind of introduced this kind of, everyone can just like type what they want, or, you know, like I said, putting their opinions forward that perhaps makes them feel better, not thinking about the person they're typing about, how, you know, they would feel if they read it. I don't know. I always think, don't type something you're not prepared to say to somebody's face, you know. That's my personal mantra. Because, and it was a documentary on Netflix, Victoria, of course, as we all know, as Posh Spice. Now, to me, she's always been a very inspirational lady. One of the people I've always looked up to her work ethic, kind of like, you know, I always knew kind of some of the things she'd had to put up with during her years of fame. And I know people say, oh, you put yourself up for it, so you've got to expect it. But when I actually watched her documentary that was on recently, I just watched the 3 episodes back to back, and I had a new appreciation of some of the stuff, you know, and you forget some of the stuff that she went through and had to endure. And I don't know, I just think, yes, you know, not everybody is everybody's cup of tea, you know. You may not be keen on the person, but to say, you can't say you hate her, you can't say, or anybody, or you dislike if you don't know the person. You can say, I'm not keen on them, or I don't think they're for me, you know, fine. But I just think social media has a side to it as well, which I call the unsocial media. And I think it does give people the power to, I don't know what I'm trying to say, but hopefully it's coming across, because it got me thinking. It's not just sort of like the Victoria documentary. I've encountered people, you know, that have said to me they've had a hard time on Instagram, they've had a hard time, you know, in Facebook groups they're in. And, you know, I've been told of a few people which apparently have said, oh, J-Lo can't stand her, or, oh, you know, we need to get rid of her, and, you know, that kind of stuff. Or, you know, oh, she only gets followers because this, that, the other. Well, dare I say, and all the people I've heard that it was said from are all ex-followers that used to message a lot or try and message a lot. And so you think, well, what happened there then? So I used to overthink it. Now I just think it's, unfortunately, it's the state of the world. So I think you have to just take it with a pinch of salt and move on. And that is my advice to everybody. And that's basically what Mr. Worldwide is saying to us all as well, that the only reason they're being that way is because, well, you're potentially winning and they're not, dare I say. So there we go. Now I'm just conscious of the time. We still have a little bit to do. So I think we all know now what's coming, don't we? Yes, it's the sound that none of us beer drinkers like. It's that time of the night for last orders. So what we do here is what's coming up. So as I have said a few weeks previous, October is a quietish month for me. So this weekend is a nice, relaxed, casual kind of trip to the Severn Valley Railway. And what I've been doing this year, again, those on Insta will know this very well, but a few years ago I started what was called the Heritage Dining Challenge, where it used to be I taste the food, you score it visually. There used to be a thing go on like that. Then I did it for the main line, and this year I thought, I'm always conscious you can't keep doing the same thing because people get bored and it also gets boring for yourself. So this year I thought I want to, push our heritage railways because they deserve it and they deserve the custom. And some of them, well, most of them do an absolutely fantastic job at the little things they try and do. And so this weekend I am trying their breakfast train that they offer. So, I think I sidetracked there. So what I've been trying to do this year is showcase, it's heritage railway dining, but it's with a difference. I'm trying to find sort of all the different options you can do, such as, just to give you an example, I did a premium dining night on the North Yorkshire Moors with their Green Night fundraiser, which was a black tie night. I did a curry night at Shernock Valley Railway. I did afternoon tea at Foxtail in Staffordshire. What else have I done? I did just a normal evening dining night at Great Central Railway. I'm trying to think, it's afternoon tea, that was it. I did afternoon tea on the Portmaddock and Festiniog Railway. And I should have wrote these down. I'm trying, as I say, all the different experience on offer I've been trying to cover as best as I can. So this is the breakfast train. Now, in my opinion, so far, the best breakfast train on a heritage railway is by far Great Central Railway, mainly because you do not book in advance. It's very well priced, in my opinion, for what you get as well. It's quality food. It's delicious. It's a very well organised and run. You order your food. They give you a little ticket for number on. They find you, they pretty much know where you are. But when they come out of it and just shout the number. They are heading your direction each time. So I think for a non-pre-booked service, I don't know how many they're going to have to cater for. And they serve it throughout the day, and the amount they churn out is impressive, and the speed they churn it out with the quality. So for me, I called it the best breakfast because they, as I say, you do not have to pre-book. You turn up, there's a seat anywhere on the train, and they'll serve it to you. So for me, that takes a lot of beating. So now this is a pre-bookable breakfast train, so you have to be booked on it to do it. So a few years ago, I did do one at Bolton Emsay Railway, which was one you had to pre-book. And that was good. That was very good. So that to me is the one to beat on the ones where you have to book for it. So I shall be very interested to see how Severn Valley cope with the breakfast. And, I shall report back, of course, in story time next week. And still to come, obviously, I think heritage-wise is Christmas dining, and that will be up at the East Lancs Railway. Now, I've done lots of dining up at East Lancs with their Dining with Distinction. It's always been a fabulous night, always been great service, great food, but I've never done a Christmas dining night there, so that will be different. So that'll be coming up December, which these will probably be finished by then, because I did say initially it'd be 6 weeks, didn't I? So if you are interested to find out how that goes, try and just watch. I'll try and put it on the normal YouTube channel as well for those of you who are on Instagram. So I'll do it that way. So that's what's coming up this weekend. So all that remains to be said is, shall we go for this week? And this could take us off air now next week. So shall we say, if we get 4 listeners, we don't come back. But if we get 400, we do. Shall we go for that? Now, based on this week's figures, we might not be coming back. I don't think so. We'll see. Hopefully, I will be back next week. But if not, thank you for listening, and I'll see you on YouTube. So take care, guys. Have a great week.